Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey, and it's Monday, Tom. We're going to have a special guest here shortly, but I'm sure you watched football yesterday.
Yes.
And my Detroit Lions, of course, are not in the playoffs. They're never in the playoffs. One playoff win in my lifetime.
Is that a rule that they're not allowed in? Is it a rule?
Yeah, that is a rule. Everybody with a valid driver's license gets in except for the Lions. So, but they've even expanded. They expanded the playoffs this year, and the Lions still couldn't get in.
Yeah, I know.
But our former quarterback Matthew Stafford has gone to the Super Bowl, which I think proves that it's had nothing to do with Matthew Stafford. It had to do with the fact that he was not surrounded by a good enough team here in Detroit.
Good football too, right? All the back and forth.
I mean, every game has really been entertaining. I was happy for Joe Burrows in Cincinnati too.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you that in the NFL, if you go out and draft that quarterback and start again. It can work out for you. Like it hasn't been. How long ago was that? 4 years? 3 years?
I think. Patrick Mahomes too. Patrick Mahomes. What a difference in the first half and then the second half. It's like he's game apart in the second half.
Yeah. My wife was watching that game. My wife's a big sports fan, and she was really disappointed in Patrick Mahomes. I was saying that she was rooting for the Chiefs, and she just is a big believer in him, and she just couldn't believe the plays that he wasn't making.
Yes. But you're right, though. Joe Burrow was meant for a young player, too.
Yeah. But it's a sort of contrasting styles a little bit. Joe Burrows, to me, is a more of a traditional, drop back guy. And Mahomes is the modern quarterback who runs and, creates, plays with his feet, his arm, and, whatever other else he can use as well.
And then even Andy Reid, some questionable moves from the coaching staff too, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, right off the bat here, one of my former teammates who I think he's kind of like, you talk about hockey players being a little vain. Larry Melnick may have that. Mansky, I think he's taking a shot at you, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, that's just the way it goes. Yeah. So, I'm not an NHL player. I don't spend time worrying about, how I look.
I had that conversation with somebody the other day that we joked around about how vain hockey players are. And I never really have.
Oh yeah, for sure. I like it. It didn't occur to me the first couple of years. I covered the NHL 30s. This is my 38th year. But I covered it nationally for 34 years, and I have never met a hockey player that didn't care how he looked in his uniform. They're so concerned about it and making sure, like that. And really, it came down to, I've had discussions with them about it in good humor, of course, about how they would make sure they'd look okay for that morning skate or for the pregame skate. Getting out there. In the old days too, with no helmets, it was really kind of fun. The hair had to be right. And
I was telling the story the other day too. I don't know what it was. So my first year in the NHL was the first year they had to wear a helmet, but that was grandfathered in. So the people that were playing before didn't have to wear a helmet. But for some reason, it was this big thing. I can remember. I can't wait to practice and not have to wear a helmet. I was just so excited. It was one of those things you look for.
Yeah.
So first practice, I've been sent down. My senior year had ended. I sent to New Haven to go play in the playoffs. And Lance Nethery, great guy, played in the NHL, smart guy, went to Colgate, I think it was. So we were doing a breakout drill. So I got no helmet on. He goes to dump the puck in. I'm, as a defenseman, I'm going back to get it and then pass up to the forward. So he goes to dump it in, fires it right off my forehead. 10 minutes into my first practice in pro hockey, cut me wide open.
For sure. Well, let's get started. Let me double check to make sure our guest isn't having any trouble getting into our program here, and we'll do that. And then,
while you're looking at that, I saw that the Evander Kane signing finally got done there with the Edmonton Oilers. Did you watch his press conference?
I didn't watch his press conference, but he got off to a good start. I guess that's what you're hoping for if you're the Oilers. He got a goal, and they seem to be you got it at least pointed in the right direction. I'm not sure they've got it turned around yet, but
I'd say one thing that was interesting in the press conference, they asked him a lot of direct questions about his past and some of the stuff that's happened. And it's not that he avoided it, but he kind of, well, not alluded. He said that some of the stuff was just totally untrue. He wouldn't say what was untrue and what wasn't. He did acknowledge that he is seeing somebody getting help, but said that's just for the gambling issue. So he wasn't like denying that things had happened, but it wasn't like he took full blame for the stuff that's happened in the past either. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to say? If I was him, I would come out and, I would have it down chapter and verse, what was, not true.
Exactly.
I mean, even if it isn't all true, enough of it is true that you have to be concerned about him, off the ice. And that's been a constant theme in sports for as long as anybody can remember. What are you doing off the ice? And, does it impact you on the ice? And, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So.
Very true. I would just like to, and again, we don't know what's true and what isn't true, all of it. I think we know quite a few of the things, but I would rather when somebody does something like that, does something wrong. I don't think it's worse when they try to deny it. Just say, listen, yes, I made mistakes in the past. Like acknowledge the mistakes. Say, listen, I need to get better the way I'm doing things. I didn't hear that from him, but again, I don't know all the details.
And I don't know why, because America loves to give second chances.
Yeah.
Like it really does. Like it roots for the guy who comes out and says, I've really messed up and I want to be better. And I want to try to, be the player that I can be. I want to be the person that I haven't been. They root for those guys when they come out, and, it's a good storyline. They love the acts of contrition that people make.
I remember well, you remember that I represented Brian Berard, and when he came back from his eye injury, he missed the whole season, got hit in the eye. He had tested positive. He's going to try out for the U.S. Olympic team, and he tested positive for performing enhancing drugs. And he was playing in Columbus at the time. And to me, it was simple. We just said, listen, just get up at the press conference, acknowledge that, yes, you did take them. There's no disputing it. I talked to the doctors. They said, Tom, yes, it's in his system. Just say, listen, I did it. I shouldn't have done it. It was stupid. And I apologize for doing it. And he did that. And the story was over with. And back in those days, the NHL didn't have a testing program either. So he didn't do anything wrong per NHL rules. And then once he acknowledged that he did it, there's nothing more anybody could say. He's, it's over with. And that's really what happened. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm out of quarantine. I did, my third quarantine stint with my one of my grandchildren in Chicago. They have pretty strict rules. And so, 3 times now, one of my grandkids has been in a classroom where we had direct exposure to COVID. So, it's hard for my son and his wife to take off. My son is an occupational therapist and my daughter-in-law is a teacher. So it's very disruptive if they take time off. Shane has patients, she has students. So I've gone in 3 times now to do that. And at least we're now down to 5 days, which, before when we started out, it was 10. So,
the positive thing is good bonding with you and your granddaughter, right?
Yeah, no, it was fun. Although there's a lot of pressure on me because I got to get her hooked up virtually to her school. And, asking a 65-year-old, to fool around and try to connect and get the right, in the right classroom, you click on and then it has a list of all the classes and, I got to get the right one. And it was just, so.
Yeah. It was, so I did that earlier. We had to delay our show a little bit. So Mike Benelli writes into this guy, Tom Laidlaw, never stopped. So Michael Benelli was on with me in the Zoom class. It was a really interesting thing. The Rangers have this program where they send out, and through Mike Benelli, he started it all, ball, hockey sticks, and the balls. And they have a whole program. They have a whole staff of people that come out, set it all up, and then some of the alumni come out and play. So we did it was close to 200 physical education teachers. We did a little conference on today. So a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. Wait a minute. I see something here. Maybe this is from Eric. Maybe I got the wrong. No, I don't. Okay. We're still good. So
well, we're looking to cancel both of our girls' high school, Greenwich High School games this weekend in the storm, so haven't skated since Thursday. God,
Yeah,
big game. Yeah, big game against Darien coming up on Wednesday. All right.
All right. Well, I wanted to ask you right away. This is where your expertise really comes in handy. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins, they had been 17-2-1 in their 20 games. Actually, they've been 17-2, and then they play the Seattle Kraken, a team that really has not played all that well this season. They are not the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep.
They're more of a traditional expansion team that's still trying to find its way, and have a lot of veterans, and really didn't get those extra pieces that the Golden Knights got. But they play the Penguins 17-2 in 19 games. They pull out a overtime victory against Sidney Crosby and company. And the next night, the Red Wings play against the Penguins, a team that's the Red Wings has struggled of late. Doesn't play very well on the road, and they put a shootout win against the Penguins. And what happens to teams like since Evgeny Malkin has come back, the Penguins really haven't been the same confident team. So, and what happens? Is it just they've all gotten used to playing one way, and now somebody comes back and it's like normally you would say things like, well, now they're counting on Malkin to do it. But that's not really true because they've had Crosby. So
I know, yeah. But I do know, I remember, and I think I've told the story before, when Barry Beck was our captain here at the Rangers, if he was out of the lineup, I felt like, again, I don't want to say we played better, but other people knew they had to step up more and do more. When Barry was there, he was a dominant player, right? I mean, a big physical player, could shoot, score, and hit, and fight, and do everything. And it is more, I think you kind of get that attitude, well, Barry will do it because he did everything. He really could do everything on the ice. So Malkin, maybe it's that he's that same kind of guy that when he's not there, everybody else steps up and plays a better game because they know he's not there. And then once he's there again, everybody subconsciously stops doing all the things they were doing before. That's my guess, because I lived through it with Barry Beck, and I would say I would agree with you on that. Just the fact that they have Crosby there, and it's not like they were humming along, and and they've had so many injuries and stuff. So and it could be, what if it's just as simple as how it is, you just sort of lose your way. You can't play great every game. Right. And the Rangers are the same way too. They haven't been playing that great. The Kraken really outplayed them yesterday. They won the game. The Rangers won the game, but the last 3 games, they just haven't done that well. Rangers. But yeah, I just think who was it that said this? I think Kenny Holland maybe said it. The difference between winning and losing, probably a lot of people said it, but the difference between winning and losing in the NHL isn't a whole lot, both in talent and in play. And sometimes when you're really on a roll, you're doing all those little things right. You're making sure the puck gets out inside your blue line. You're making sure it gets in the other team zone outside the blue line. Making 10-foot passes instead of trying to make those 50-foot passes that don't always work. So when you're winning, you're doing all those little things, and it's harder to play that way. Then after a while, when you've been winning so much, you feel like, oh man, can we let down just a little bit here? So now you start cheating a little bit on your game, and now you start to lose a few games. Now you start to lose your confidence, and now you've got to get it back again. So and you see that with every team, right? The teams that have it, that don't do well, the ones that have those tough stretches at the start of the year. It's nice to just start off, maybe have a tough stretch in the middle of the season, then get back playing again. So to me, part of it is that I just feel like with Pittsburgh, how have they done it all year long? When Crosby was out and Malkin was out, it's more of a surprise. Geez, how are you doing it? But so when they don't have a good stretch there, I just kind of like, okay, well, finally you have a stretch where you're getting back to being a human being. So.
It is fascinating. I watched the Red Wings are a rebuilding team, obviously, and they've had moments this season. Overall they've been improved. They've been better, but they're still not anywhere near where they need to be. And I tell people, if you want to understand how long the rebuilding process takes, because they embraced, a lot of people think they're rebuilding, but they're really not. To me, a true rebuild is you kind of strip it down to the chassis. Like the Rangers rebuild really wasn't a rebuild in my mind. It was more of a reset.
Yes,
like they kept a lot of players, they got rid of some, they embraced a different strategy, And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, they called it a rebuild, but to me, that's more of a reset. What Toronto did, what the Oilers have done multiple times, what the Sabres are doing, those are rebuilds. The Senators are rebuilding.
Yeah, Arizona is clearly rebuilding. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But what I find so fascinating is the fact that the hardest thing I think is, and if anyone is a golfer, I think you can relate to that. Like, there are times when you go out and you just seem to do everything right on the golf course, and you play above what you normally play. Right. And your stroke, your swing plane seems right, and you're driving the ball better, but you can't replicate that the next time. And I see the same thing. Like, I'll get up in my backswing and I'll feel out of control, and one side of my brain will say, "You're out of control. Right. You're going to hit this, whatever." And I'll try to correct, but I can't get it. Well, it's the same way with teams. Like, they play well. The Red Wings played a great game against Pittsburgh. They beat them 3-2 in a shootout, played well defensively, got secondary scoring. Their top two lines didn't score, but the bottom two lines did. The next night, they play against Toronto, and they can't hold a 4-2 lead, give up 5 goals in the third period. Nothing like the team we had seen the night before. Why is that? You're a former player. Why is that so hard to replicate, what you did the game before in the next game?
Again, to me, I really go back to what I said before. It's where, like, winning is hard work. It's sacrifice. Yeah. So it's not, so you get a talented player that's been able to do, he's coming up in junior or college or minor leagues, and he's able to do whatever he wants because he's such a talented player. And then he gets to the National Hockey League, and there's a lot of talented players. So to win and be successful at the NHL level, it's beyond the talent. It's okay. Do you adhere to the system? How does the coach want you to back check? How do you break out of your own zone? Goaltender's got to do his job, and very often they don't want to play goaltender, the number one goaltender in back-to-back nights. So all those things come in, and it's just, you don't. And I think the confidence part, I remember back, as a young player, especially, that whole confidence thing is huge, right? Like, again, you can have confidence where I remember times when I'm on the ice and I go to pass, and maybe I've got to pass it just a little bit, like 6 inches backwards, because there's another defender there. And when you're really confident, you can make that pass. But when things aren't going well for you, you're not feeling good about your game, like, you don't want to pass the puck at all, because it's just like everything's going wrong. And that's, like you said, with your backswing with hockey, it's just with golf. It's just, for whatever reason, the confidence is such a huge thing. And to get it back and to lose it, you don't really know why. But I think you can understand. Like, for me now, as an older, experienced, we'll call it, person, I think it's you understand how to get it back better now. It's your work ethic, your process that you go through to prepare for every game. I don't know if that's always there as a young player too. So I hear you.
What I also think is amazing, and I've written a lot about this, and I thought it would be an interesting book as well. The idea of confidence, like when you're thinking of a pro player, making it with a multi-million-dollar contract, that really, the reason he's arrived at the NHL is because he is, cocky and confident. Yep. And, some people say cocky as if it's a negative. I've always seen it as a positive for an athlete. Yeah. Like, you have to expect to be successful. Yep. So they come up and they have all this confidence. And then even if they're great, like superstars, they go through periods where they have no confidence. And it's really hard. Like, you could see where, I would have no, confidence on the golf course just because I'm not a pro. I don't play enough. I have a bad swing to begin with, a lot of bad things. But, pros, like yourself, when you guys played, the reason you were there is because you had confidence. So how does it disappear? And, like, what's it feel like when you don't have any confidence?
Oh, it's frustrating. It's terrible, especially when you're playing a team sport. And for a guy like me, that I had to be like a team player. I wasn't talented enough to be like Wayne Gretzky or whatever. I had to adhere to the team structure, do my job inside that team structure. So when you lose your confidence, like, you're getting beat one-on-one, everybody, the whole other team's looking at you like, Tom, what are you doing? You never get beat one-on-one. What's all that about? Like, I've told the story so many times. In LA, we had that one game, we're facing off at center ice, and it's Mark Messier, Yuri Curry, Wayne Gretzky on our side, and Timmy Waters are out on defense, and Wayne wins the drawback to me. And I, like, 1,000 times, I just passed it. Tim Waters over there, I passed a winger up front. I've done it thousands of times. The puck, for whatever, just blew up like This is a hand grenade, and all I can't find the puck. It's in my feet. Yuri Curry comes and picks it up and goes and scores a breakaway. And I'm just like, I'm crushed. And I'll never forget, Kerry Fraser was the referee, and we were buddies by then. I'd played long enough. And he's standing there at center ice with the puck. He won't drop the puck. And I'm yelling at him, drop the effing puck, drop the puck. Because he knows that I'm now just totally embarrassed. And as long as he's standing there and not dropping the puck, everybody's just focused on me and that stupid play. So, it's just, I really don't know how to, I think it's easier to figure out how to get the confidence back as opposed to why did you lose the confidence in the first place? And yes, a lot of people say, well, geez, they're making millions of dollars. How can they not be confident? But look at Patrick Mahomes yesterday. He had a fantastic first half of the game. And I really thought in the second half of the game, he'd lost his confidence. You're thinking Patrick Mahomes is losing his confidence. And, you've seen Tom Brady has done it sometimes. He doesn't always play perfect. So,
yeah, like I learned pretty quickly that confidence has nothing to do with money. Because, you don't even, like, no athlete is thinking about how much they're earning when they're in competition. No, you're not sitting around thinking I'm earning $83,000 a game today. You're just out competing. You're trying to, you're doing what you've done since you were, 8 and 9 years old. Just trying to, compete.
And speaking of confidence too, did you see the Henrik Lundqvist retirement ceremony at all? He's a confident man too. Oof.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, he is a confident guy, and that's why he was a great goalie. You got to expect to stop the puck.
Well, a lot of times in those retirement ceremonies, it isn't as much the person that's getting retired that talks about his career as much. It's more they're thanking where he was very open to talking about his career, how intense he was, and what his wife put his poor wife through, and everything. It was kind of a unique ceremony, a little different.
No, I'm sorry I missed that because Henrik Lundqvist was one of my favorite interviews throughout my career. I always got at least I never went really a season without having a lengthy interview with him because he was always among one of the top goalies in the league, and we had that national media tour, and Henrik went almost every year. Like a lot of athletes, they don't want anything to do with it. They just they don't want to do it. But Henrik would show up, always impeccably dressed. Other guys would come in looking very casual, and here he would be in a suit. And I've told this story many times, but every year there'd be a different topic of conversation. Sometimes it was how many games a goalie should play. I remember having a lengthy discussion on that. And Henrik liked to play a lot of games. He felt like he stayed in the zone if he played a lot of games, and he didn't really believe that he got weary. And then he got older and he changed a little bit. But one year we stumbled upon the idea of how many suits do you have in your closet?
That's right.
And it turned out his answer was 67. And it became, everywhere I'd go, people would say, man, I read your story about Henrik Lundqvist. The players would say to me, 67 suits. I don't, I remember Nicholas Lidstrom saying, I only got 10, so like,
I might have had 10 my whole career.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was fun. But
hair too. I mean,
I love the man.
How much time do you spend on your hair? How much time do you spend on your hair?
How much time do I spend on my hair?
Yeah.
None, same as you. So
no, I have to shave mine. I actually have to shave mine because it's not too nice. But Henrik Lundqvist must spend like an hour just on his hair alone.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, for sure. I forgot what I was going to say now. About the talking about the Lundqvist ceremony, but I do like the guys who aren't. Fearful to talk about themselves. A little bit. It's
changed in hockey, though. That wasn't always like that in hockey.
No, it is like I've always felt like if you want to do a feature story on a player, you really got to talk to people around them.
Yeah,
because guys are not very good at talking about themselves, and I think that's not just hockey. I think in life it's like that.
Yeah.
People don't really, know what to say about them. But Henrik, could talk about it because, first of all, he's a pretty deep thinker.
Yeah.
He gives a lot of thought to why he does the things, he does do. And other thing about him that I really liked was once he moved to New York, he moved body and soul.
Yeah.
Totally. He was a New Yorker. And, he told me before he retired that he and his wife were going to stay in New York.
Yeah.
Like that. They felt like they, even though they certainly loved in Sweden and everything else, he just felt like he was more of a New Yorker now. So
Well, he's like Derek Jeter, right? Same kind of thing. Never gotten any trouble. All good stories about him. Always carried himself with total class. A competitor on and off the court and the field.
Well, I loved his collection of friends. Like sometimes you can sort of pick who somebody's friends are going to be on a team. You couldn't do that with Henrik because like he and Sean Avery were business partners.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Matt.
And like you never sort of knew who Henrik was going to.
Well, John McEnroe and him were buddies. McEnroe gave him a guitar at the ceremony too. Yeah.
Well, I could see that. So. Yeah. John McEnroe is kind of an eclectic guy.
Yes.
Kind of he and McEnroe and Chelios are friends as well. They have like Chelios has had a place in at the beach in California for forever.
He trains out there.
Yeah, and McEnroe is out there.
Oh.
And he for the book that I did with Chris. He tells just a hilarious story of McEnroe just browbeating him into being a celebrity judge at a tennis tournament, a charity tennis event. So he was a celebrity judge, really, thought, he's just there because he's Chris Chelios.
Right.
But he said when he had McEnroe just gave him nothing but grief on every call he made, just said he wouldn't cover it, wouldn't cut him a break.
Hey, you're speaking of friends. Ron Duguay has a new friend. Do you know who his new friend is?
No.
It's somebody you're not going to like. It's a political person. Sarah Palin is a new friend of Ron Duguay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were at page 6 of the New York Post recently. She took a lot of heat because she had not gotten vaccinated and had tested positive for COVID. And there she is sitting with Ron Duguay in a restaurant in Manhattan.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. Not supposed to be sitting. She's not supposed to be out. Obviously, she's supposed to be quarantined. She certainly can't be sitting in a restaurant. And she's not vaccinated. So,
yeah. Now, you just assumed that I wouldn't like Sarah Palin just because of my political.
I know your political views. Yeah. Do you like Sarah Palin?
Well, I don't know her personally, but, I usually separate my, now if the question is, do I prefer her political viewpoint? No, I do not. I do not, but I don't really know her, obviously. No, don't know that much about her either. So
she's a colorful character, it seems like. Yes,
she is. Yes, she is.
For sure. Ron Duguay. So Sarah Duguay. What if they get married? Like Sarah Duguay.
Well, I think she'd still be Sarah Palin. This is the 21st century.
Right? You'd be Ron Palin.
So, we don't see that. I want to go to hockey a little bit because I do want to get into the Evander Kane. Having seen the press conference and now knowing, what people have been writing about, how he looks in an Oilers jersey. And I know there was it's like anything else. There's always overreaction. Yeah. Some people are saying, "Oh, this is going to be the biggest disaster in the history of mankind," and other people are saying, this gives us a chance to win the cup. That he really adds to the offense. Where, obviously it's somewhere in the middle of that is. But I wanted your take on it. I mean, now do you feel any better about it? Now that it's happened. And well, I thought the price tag was a little high, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it was more than anticipated. Yeah, I was really surprised. Yeah, it shows there must have been a few other teams interested too. So I look at a few things. Edmonton is a whole lot different than, he was in Buffalo when things didn't go perfect either. But he was in San Jose when things didn't go well. So in Edmonton, he's not going to be able to go anywhere without being recognized. So if he thinks he's going to do some of the stuff that he's been accused of doing, it's just, I would have to think maybe the agent is saying to him too, maybe Kenny Holland, the general manager there, maybe that's part of the process for him was he was saying, listen, the kid's not going to be able to do anything here. So it's better in Edmonton for him than it would have been in San Jose. Listen, we both have a ton of faith in Kenny Holland, and he's proven that we should have faith in him with all the years he ran the Detroit Red Wings, and they were very successful here. So we know that he knows what he's doing. It really sounded at the press conference, which makes sense. He talked to a lot of people that have been around Evander Kane in the past, and they must have all not said bad things. They must have heard enough good stuff to say, listen, this is worth the risk. To me, and you've said this before, it still doesn't solve the problem with their goaltending too, right? It's not.
Yeah. It does not. Yeah.
But, if you look, they've got two good lines up front there now. He is that big physical guy. I just like he even talked in a press conference about the relationship with some of his teammates in San Jose that wasn't that good. And I just think I just view the Edmonton locker room as kind of a fragile locker room. I mean, I just don't view it as I mean, Draisaitl just had the run in with the reporter the other day. They've been losing games. Connor McDavid is a fantastic player, but I don't view him as that real powerful leader type person. I don't know. That's a dicey one to me. But again, the way they're playing right now, or up to this point, it looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs anyway. So it's not like he's ruined the season for them. But,
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. How you've been in the dressing room, for a decade in a pro league. Like, what's that like in there? I mean, do you know who doesn't like who and whatever? I mean, is it evident to everybody?
And it happens all the time. There's some players just don't. It's like the human beings, right? You're not always going to get along with everybody.
Right.
But the key is, though, that the people that don't get along with each other have to understand that they have to work together to have that team being successful. So, I mean, I hardly ever saw where individual relationships got in the way of teams not being successful. That certainly wasn't the reason. I mean, we even had good friends, the guys in the team, George McPhee and Steve Richmond. I've told the story, tried to beat each other over the head training camp or in practice, with no helmets on and their sticks, but they were like best friends. So, there's always going to be those times where you just don't get along with people that well. But again, I've just never seen it get in the way. Now, the athletes are different nowadays. And again, if we had a problem with somebody in practice, take it out on the ice. And then once that happens, then it's done with. We did have certain incidents sometimes where people did things that were wrong internally. And you could see there was some tension in the air for a while. But then after a while, guys get back to it. Listen, I've worked my whole life to play in the National Hockey League, to be part of a team. So, they got back to it. So
do you snap at one another because you are in a competitive environment, or do people just not say anything?
There's some of that, but there's a lot of snapping too. I mean, I'll never forget in LA. I'm a huge fan of Robbie Ftorek. I played with him. He coached me out in LA, and I still consider him a great friend of mine. And again, I got a ton of respect for him. He was coaching at the time. Rolly Melanson was a goaltender in LA, and we were playing terrible. And Rolly and I got along great. We lived near each other. We drive to practice together, games together, and everything. So we're friends. He came in and started criticizing the team, and I thought that was inappropriate. So I told him to stop the effing puck. And Robbie came in. He said, "That's enough of that." And I just so hot. I didn't listen to Robbie, and I never was like that when Robbie said, "Stop the effing puck again." So we went back and forth. And Robbie actually asked me to step in and goes, "Enough, stop." So it gets heated, But I think that shows, if you don't get heated, it shows you maybe don't care about the team that much, right? You're fighting because you want the team to win, and we're not playing well enough.
Now, do you size up whether or not the guy has an ego they can take it, or you just don't care? You just
at that time to snap, you're gone,
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. You don't control it, so.
Yeah. The funniest one, I know I've told a story, so I won't go into details. The Thomas Sanson, Glennie Hanlon story in New York here at the Rangers was the funniest, because Thomas at that point didn't really speak English, so we had this team meeting. We weren't playing well, and Thomas just repeated what somebody else had said in the locker room, and just Glennie Hanlon just flipped out, because Glennie Hanlon was one of the utmost team guys I've ever played with. And then Thomas Sanson came down. It's kind of an unwritten rule. You didn't shoot high shots, especially when you're warming up a goaltender in practice. So Thomas Sanson, he did pay attention to that stuff. So he fired a hard one at Glennie. Glennie skated out of the net, chased Thomas all around the ice in practice. And we got Glennie settled down and went back at it. And Thomas, at this point now, he said, "Screw this." So he went back and shot another hard one at Glennie. Glennie's out of the net again, chasing Thomas around at practice. So
I've always wondered too. I've been at practices. I've seen more than my fair share of practices, and I've seen fights break out. And I've always find it amazing that some fights they let go, and some guys move in right away and break them up. And I've always wondered, like, what's the determining factor on that? Was it a mismatch that you thought on the fight, or did you think that you didn't really want them fighting, or sometimes do you think they needed to throw punches?
So if it was a mismatch, you definitely are jumping in. Or if most of the guys on the team believed that the one guy deserved a whipping, then and if he was going to be getting a whipping from somebody that was pretty tough, then a lot of times, okay, let it go. Then you want it. Like if somebody's antagonizing and then the fight starts, say, okay, you wanted it. You were mouthing off and everything. So there's.
Well, let me circle back to where I started that. What's your thoughts now on Kane going there?
Well, you know what? I'm hoping that because of all the other stuff has happened, he's gotten it through his head, and other people have gotten him to say, Evander, you've got to stop and think about your actions and what you're doing. You're not going to get many more opportunities. It's just a contract for this year. So my belief is then he's a free agent at the end of the year and he can sign with somebody else. So if he goes out and keeps his nose clean and plays well, then he can sign another big contract. Now, I would say that most people, if they're going to sign him, are not going to sign him to a much more than a 2 or 3 year contract, because we're not okay. We want the player; he's a great player, but we're not going to go too far down the road with him until we know that he's really turned the corner. So, to me, I think so. For that reason, I think everything will be fine there, and they are a good enough team. If Kenny Holland can do something with the goaltending, that they can still make the playoffs with the talent they've got. Because if you look at their top 6 forwards, they're very talented. It's just a matter of keeping the puck out of their own net. So, I think he'll work out well there.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, and we talked about this before it all happened. Like, you look at his numbers and you think, well, like wow, averaged 25 goals a year for 6 years, and he's got some grit and some fire. 100 penalty minutes per season, so he can be valuable. And then you have the other factor to weigh against that, which is the disruptive element that he can sometimes cause. So. And what's interesting about that, and I want to get your take on this as well, because I was thinking about this the other day. It seemed like the physical element had sort of left the game, but now it feels to me like it's coming back. Like you really are starting to see the size issue, and it's always been there. Like even when there wasn't a lot of heavy hitting, but there's bulk on all these teams that are winning. The Blues were a bigger team. The Capitals were a bigger team. And it's not just the punishment that teams lay out; it's how much weight you got to move from the net.
Very true. We do go in cycles where teams all of a sudden started thinking, well, the game's going faster, and faster means smaller, right? But I think now with these athletes being better athletes too, that they can still be big and skate. You look at Victor Hedman, how good he's skating. Shea Weber was a big man, how he got around the ice. So it's, I think you're right. It's people are now seeing, okay, what does it take to win? All you got to do is look back at history. What have these winning teams got? They've got size, speed, goal scorers, goaltending. We even went through a stretch there where, remember back when the Chicago won the cup there, and it was them and Philly in the finals, and they really kind of had like backup goaltenders at that time in net. I know a lot of teams thought you really don't need to spend a lot of money on a goaltender. Well, now that whole theory is now spun around, and now you look at Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, how much they mean to their teams. Big name goaltenders make a difference.
Yeah, I've gotten interested in advanced stats over the last couple of years. Fascinated would probably be a better word for it, because, and I see it a little bit differently. I think people look at stats that we can see how a team is based on. Like if you play a certain way, you can be a good team. Right. But I think good teams play the way that provide that create good advanced stats. Yeah. I think it's really the other way around, and so forth. But I wondered from the individual player's perspective. I remember the great and late to Bill Gadsby telling me about the time when, in the 1940s and 50s, you'd have team meetings and they'd talk about why a goal would score, and everybody'd say, well, I had my man. And, and Bill would always say, well, we can't all have had our man, because then, nobody would have scored. But that's what he said. And he goes, boy, when video came in, changed everything. You couldn't say that. Oh. Well, now I wonder too, does advanced stats take it to another level? I mean, you can keep track of, how many dangerous scoring chances are out there, and whether or not they scored on those, and so forth. And I wonder, do you like your game being dissected as much as it is now?
See, I would not have, because I more looked at my game like, and I'm not trying to be humble about this, but I just didn't really think I was that good of a player. I just had to compete. I had to be a team player. I had to compete, show up every night for the game. The statistics for me just didn't really mean that much. But again, we did not have the advanced stats that they do now either. Like the other thing that kind of gets to me, I know these star players like Sidney Crosby. Every time he goes to the bench, he grabs that iPad first thing and he looks.
Oh, I know.
Play. Yeah, I would have hated that. I hated when coaches kept coming to me telling me all the things I did bad on that shift, because I got to get ready for the next shift. But it seems to be the trend now. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked to guys about that, and what they tell me is they're looking to see like what they're basically formulating a plan for how to attack the goalie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like if the guy got his glove hand up and okay, so they notice, hey, look, he's quick to that side with his glove. Maybe if we go
Yeah.
low on the other side. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but
I know, and the game
that's
has changed so much too. It's again like our strategy. I mean, the intimidation was part of the strategy back then, like the physical intimidation, fighting, hitting. What you're saying to the opponents. The game has changed so much that way that it's much more of a skill game now than we had.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we've gone on a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we hope to have back. We were trying to hook up with Eric Erlandson, who is the Lightning insider. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I think we'll get with him on Wednesday. Maybe we just had a communication breakdown, so I'll try to get him in Wednesday. But anyway, if you want to read me, I'm at DetroitHockeyNow.com and also HockeyBuzz.com.
And if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. Again, that's radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see everybody on Wednesday.